free. Okay, and like I was just talking about, AutoCAD's interface is a little bit different on the new part. When you get to their homepage, it usually starts with a little bit different. It doesn't have doesn't start you automatically in a drawing anymore. It used to, but now it doesn't. Draft Site has maintained that. You just start it up, it starts you off in a new drawing, and you're kind of already there. It picks a name for your drawing by default. You haven't saved it yet or anything like that, no name _0. And if you start another drawing or something like that, you'll see it just kind of increments up. Okay. And so I'll close that because I don't need that. But that's kind of that's essentially the new command. So if you type in new, you hit that, it's going to ask you to pick a DWT. Okay. In AutoCAD, that's going to be ACAD.DWT, and that's actually the standard drawing template. Okay. But in Draft Site, they can't quite use everything from AutoCAD, so they're going to kind of have a few variations here and there. So you'll find that they run a lot the same. It's just little subtle differences here. So there are some differences. Okay. Standard DWT, it just starts off the drawing. Now the template file has a lot of default settings and things like that in it. And if you actually want your drawings to come up, automatically have a few things set for you and ready to go, like your grid, snap, and stuff like that. Some of the things we talked about, you can set those things up and call it your own custom template file, and then you'll actually already have those settings in there. For now, we're going to stick with the default settings of the standard template. Okay. All right. So I'm going to review a little bit of some of the things we have covered. Let's talk about, we talked about the new command. We talked about the line. We talked about the line command where you type in line and you just start picking points. You can draw whatever kind of shapes you want to draw or whatever. And then when you're in, if you want that to actually come to a close, you hit C for close. It'll close up based on the pinpoints that you picked. Now, nothing really pretty about this particular drawing. No accuracy was drawn, but I did draw a shape. I could get a little bit more creative in it. You know, I could erase these things. If I can actually type the erase command and enter. Okay, erase. Oh my God. No, just erase. This is not difficult. Enter. Thank you. I'm not sure what command I was running. If you hit F2 in AutoCAD, it'll bring up your command window. You can see what kind of stupid stuff you're doing. Okay, and you see what I was doing here. I was started some things and started trim, and I wasn't actually picking erase for some reason. It started going with some other command. Not sure how I got into that, but that's kind of what I did. It was my bad, but just the way it kind of did. Again, with line, you can draw with absolute points. I could draw from 0, and I could actually start drawing from that point. I can zoom out a little bit. You notice that 0, goes to this little weird X and Y thing on the screen. This is called your UCS icon. Okay. In a minute, I'm going to show you a command called UCS icon and show you how to either get rid of it or kind of manipulate it a little bit. All right. So I'm drawing from 0, If I want to draw at this angle, I can input a distance for the angle that I'm dragging right now. Say I want to go 10, and it'll actually draw whatever angle I'm at right now, and it'll go 10 units. Notice it's actually right where I'm at there. Okay. Another thing I can do is I can input an absolute coordinate. I can say 10, 10. And as you know, that's going to be a 45-degree angle that I actually just drew that at. If I wanted to draw straight down 10 units, I could just drag this way and say 10. Notice I turned on ortho there. Remember, ortho is F8 and allows you to draw in the straight line on either the x-axis or the y-axis. All right. So if you see here, I'm on the x-axis, going back and forth here, or I'm on the y-axis, going up and down here. All right. So again, point entry is something you're going to utilize quite a bit, but sometimes you're just going to draw and then you're going to move stuff to where it needs to go. Okay. So I'm going to erase this again. Okay. Erase. And boom. There we go. All right. Snap. We talked about snap command. When you type in snap, you can set your snap to be something. I'm going to set to 0.25, and that means when I draw a line now, I am snapping at 2.5 increments. So if I'm drawing this far, if I snap over from where I picked, if I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, that means that was an inch. So if I list that using the list command, and I pick it, enter, you can see the length of it is in fact 1 inch. All right. So that snap helps you draw very precise segmented lines of a particular length or your snap points, okay? O-snaps. O-snaps give you the ability to actually pick an endpoint, a midpoint, or a nearest point, or other points as well, like if you have two lines that intersect. Excuse me. I'm going to draw a line from here, 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 and then I'm going to go to the intersection. I'm going to type in my O-snap, which is INT. You only have to type in the first three letters of the O-snap name. So I'm going to drag to here, and notice what happens. Even though I have ortho on, my O-snap is going to override that and bring it to here. So now if I pick, that's where that line's going to go. Okay, so you kind of see how that works out there. If I do another line and I say I want to draw from the midpoint of this line, I type in MID. I can pick there, and now I'm drawing from the midpoint of that line. Now, hold on one second. I had to cough. I didn't want to do that on the speaker. Okay, all right. Something that's interesting about a line. Let's see here. Let's draw a line, and we'll snap. Let's see. We snap. If I draw one line, all right, here I draw a line, and I draw a line segment, just one segment. But now we know that is a 1/4 inch because my snap is set to it that particular segment. So if I draw another line, I draw from mid of here. If I pick on here, it's not going to be on a snap point. Notice it's not on the snap point of one of these, but it's actually in the middle because half of 0.25 is 0.125. So that's obviously not going to be a snap point, but it can draw from there. And then now everything else I pick from that point forward is going to still be on snap. All right, so you have to understand that when you pick a midpoint and your snap is larger than your midpoint, then it's not quite going to be the way it is. So if I try to get to that line point again, I can't do it with just snap. I'd have to actually do the midpoint. I can't even get to the end of this here. I'd have to actually do INT. Okay. If I actually can type INT. And then I had to turn off OSNAP, or not OSNAP, but snap. And then I can move around a little more freely, and the snap is not keeping me restricted. Something else to note, that if you zoom in so tight, like here, and I turn on snap, notice if I try and draw a line here, that's help. I draw a line here, I can't move. Notice it doesn't move because my snap is too big for my screen. I'm moving, but nothing's happening. So if I zoom out a little bit, now you can see I can move around a little bit. I'm not so restricted. So I can zoom out farther, then your restriction becomes a lot less and less because your snap scale is more applicable to your display. So keep that in mind. One thing that used to drive people crazy is if you go to their computer, zoom them in, and they sit there and go, my mouse is not working, and it'd drive them crazy. All they had to do is zoom out. Okay, that's kind of a fun tidbit. All right, so I'm going to turn off OSNAP, or snaps, using F9. If you notice that toggles it, F9 toggles off and on snap. Ortho is toggled by F8. F7 is your grid. All right, we discussed the grid. You can change the grid points to be a little bit bigger or smaller, depends on what you want to see. All right, grid off and on. Okay, F3 is your O snaps. All right, that's your automatic O snaps. All right, type in DD O snap. DD. That's the help feature. If you hit F1, it brings up help. DDO snap. All right, DDO snap. I can't type it. DDO snap. I can't type in here. Let's keep doing trees. Okay. O snap. Just type in O snap. It's going to pop up the dialog box. All right. DDO snap is an old command in AutoCAD and it just still works, but does not work in here. But you can just type in O snap here to bring this up. These are what you call running O snaps. Okay. If you hit F3, OSNAPs pops on and it automatically tries to find one of these points for you. Okay, I'm going to recommend you leave this off. You uncheck all of these and don't use these. All right. Now later, when you get better and you understand how these things work, then you can try and apply those as you want. I've been using AutoCAD for 30+ years. I still prefer it off. Okay, because what happens is when you pick a point and AutoCAD decides to dictate which point you pick, it might drive you crazy and you might not know it picked a different point for you. You're blowing on going down the line. Next thing you know, you realize you've made a mistake and you grabbed the wrong point. That's why I type in all my OSNAPs manually. Okay. So, but they are there, and I will show you how to use them as we get a little bit farther down the road. All right. Now we took grid options. We talked about the options command if you're actually going to try and manipulate a few things here. All right, options. If you're going to change, update things or anything like that, you can come down here to find a setting if you're looking for something. Like if you're looking for the crosshair, okay, just by the cursor with the crosshair, you can look in here. Right now, the pointer size is set to 20. You know, when AutoCAD first came out, it was always set to 100%. It went all the way across the screen. Notice the crosshair goes all the way across the screen. It helped you line things up. You'd say, okay, that's pretty good. We're in good shape there. I'm moving my things around. And so if you're moving this line and you grabbed it and you're moving, you could actually kind of see where it's going to line up at with in certain ways here and there. But we'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, we talked a little bit about set bar. A set bar is a command that allows you to actually set particular variables in AutoCAD or DraftSight for this matter. You have a ton of variables. I'm going to hit space and just sit here and toggle through these. Can y'all see this command window?
Which one?
Can y'all see this white window in the middle of the black screen?
No.
Oh, crap. Okay, that's not going to show up then. Never mind. You can see them down here. They're kind of coming up, but they're not. You can't see as much as I was trying to show you.
Oh, gotcha. I see at the bottom there.
Yeah, it's down here at the bottom. Okay, but anyway, I'll escape out of that. We'll get into that later. Okay. Variables control how your life works and everything else inside AutoCAD. And you'll find how those actually, most of those things will actually help make your life a lot easier. And some of them will make your life really difficult if you don't know about them. Okay. We talked a little about zoom. Zoom is on your scroll wheel. You just scroll forward, it zooms you in, you roll back, and it zooms you out. Okay. If you want to do a pan is if you press down the mouse or not the mouse, but the scroll wheel, and allows you to kind of move the view area of where you're at. It's not moving your entities, it's just moving your view area. All right. Zoom is also a command. You type at the command prompt. You type in zoom and then W for window and then zoom in on a particular area. It'll take you to that spot. You can also zoom and hit P for previous. It'll take you back out. You can also do zoom and do E for extents. That'll give you everything that's in the drawing at this point and zoom to those particular points. If you do a zoom all, it actually takes you to the limits of the drawing or the extents, depends on which one it is. In previous versions or early versions of CAD, back when we had 286s, 386s, and 486 PCs, not these super fast ones you guys have now, we had to be very conservative on when we did a regeneration. Okay, because that could take time. That could take a few minutes. It could take a few seconds, or it could take however long depending on the size of your drawing. And nowadays you don't really have to worry about that. Zoom extents is something you do all the time now. Before you do a zoom all, because it wouldn't recreate a regeneration. Zoom extents does a regeneration. Okay. All right, and let's see. We do pan. All right, so now we're going to go over a few other things. All right, now I'm going to talk about this icon down here. This is called the UCS icon. If you type in UCS icon, you have a few options here. You can actually change the origin of the icon. If I wanted that to be at 10,10, I could actually set it at 10,10. And now it's going, well, if you type it in correctly, what did I do here? Origin, OR, 10,10. Boom. Okay. Maybe I had to pick it. Sorry, this is, done. Good. All right, that just doesn't work. Never mind. UCS icon. 9 times out of 10, all you're going to do is probably turn it off. I'm going to say OFF to turn it off, and it now turns off and is no longer kind of annoying on the screen. And you don't have to really worry about it. The drawings that we're working on, the icon, UCS icon comes in handy when you start working in 3D or rotated plans or rotated areas, and you want to know where you're kind of at, or if you're using user coordinate systems to actually rotate your location and things like that. Because we typically draw things in the location where they're at. And say, we don't always face north straight up because, our house might be a little bit crooked on the property line. And sometimes you end up drawing at different angles. And so you might want to adjust your UCS to be a little bit different. So we'll go into that later. All right. I'm going to run the erase command again and erase. Okay. Let's talk. We've talked about the circle command. Just type in circle. You can just pick a point and pick a point. You can do this all day long. And something else is spacebar is return or just runs the same command you just did. So all I'm hitting right now is I'm hitting spacebar and I'm picking 2 points, okay, to do this. All right. Now, if I wanted all these to come from the same exact spot, I could actually type in the coordinate of where those all need to be from. Okay, I'm going to erase and I'm going to say all and I hit enter. Okay, that's the erase command. Now, there's a couple ways to erase things. Okay, let's draw a few things on here to get a few things on here. Okay, let's do a circle or 2. Okay, we're going to talk about your selection process. When you type in the erase command, if you can type, I can't, obviously. You have a little pick box. See that little box that comes up right at the end of my cursor? That's called your pick box. Now, if you are working on this and you're like, that's just too small for me to pick things with, this is kind of tedious. You're like, you're picking and things like, you're like, that's just too small. You can change the size of your pick box. That's one of those system variables. You type in pick box, and you can actually set that from 3 to like 5. I typically like my setting at 5. And so now if I do erase, you'll see the box a little bit bigger, a little easier to get close to the object and pick it. Okay, so depending on your mouse and how fast your mouse moves and everything else, this is going to be kind of something that you get used to and understand it. Now, another setting is the size of that little, it's not really that size, but it's the area upon which an O snap actually gets called the aperture. A-P-E-T-U-R-E, aperture. I typically leave this set at 10, okay? So I'm going to set that to 10. And that's actually the box upon which, when you're actually doing the line, and I type in mid. I type in mid, see how big that box is now around that thing? That means anything gets close to that will actually trigger an O snap to grab it. So if I get up here, I get close to this. As soon as that box gets close to that, it snaps onto it. That's the size of that box where it kind of starts looking for something. It starts examining that area. There's no midpoint on a circle. There's midpoint on lines. So anywhere I go around here, but you have to have danger. So if I'm right here, which midpoint am I looking for? Okay. You can hit the tab key and kind of tab through the lines that are underneath the midpoint. Okay, so if I wanted this midpoint, I click now, and then I draw it from that point. Okay, that I'll tell you what, using the tab is not something you're going to find yourself doing a whole lot of, but it is an option there. And that's also something you can do with your O snaps when you're doing running O snaps and you're having like a midpoint, an endpoint, or a near point. I don't recommend using the near point at all because that's really going to throw you off because that will be found just about on anything. Okay, but you can tab through those O snaps as you're looking for one. Like say if you're looking for right here and it keeps giving you a perpendicular point or a midpoint and you're actually looking for an endpoint, you can tab and it'll actually snap to the one of the endpoints or the other. Okay, all right. Now we're talking about the erase command and we're talking about selection process. Okay, so if I erase and I'm picking and things like this gets tedious. I want to be able to select things a little bit faster, okay? Or say I just want to erase this one and this one. All right, now I could zoom in and I could go boom, and then I could type in the erase command and those are gone, okay? Undo, there's also a command called undo, I'll get into that in just a minute. But if I'm out here and I don't want to have to fine tune that, I can actually type in erase and I can do what's called a window. If I go left to right, okay, it's a window. Anything that's inside that box, it's going to select. Okay, if you notice, I can scooch up a little bit and suddenly those 2 lines that are attached to those are no longer in the selection. Notice how they turn kind of orange? I'll zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see that better. But if they're totally inside the box, they are selected. But as soon as I come up just past that, notice they're no longer selected. I just want to erase those 2. I pick and then I hit enter and those are going to disappear. All right, let's undo that again. And now, another selection method is called the crossing. Okay, I'm going to do erase. Crossing is from right to left. So if I go this way, it's a green box, and notice it has a dashed line on it. That means anything it touches, it selects. So if I go here and I just barely touch that line there, or if I come down farther, I just barely grab that, I just grab that. Notice how much more you can select without getting too much in there. Okay, so you have all kinds of ability with crossing, because crossing comes in handy for a lot of various reasons, but you want to make sure that you understand the differences between the two. Because if I'm just wanting to erase those two little circles, those two lines in there, and I do that, hit enter, and suddenly most of my drawing is drawn. I didn't want that to happen. Okay. Now there's also a command called oops. Oops is different than undo. Okay, it just means undelete the last thing I deleted. Hit oops and it's done. It's not the same as undo. Undo will actually undo the command we actually implemented. So let me give you a demonstration of that. So if I come in here and I draw a line here, and then I erase these two, this line here and this line here. Okay, then I draw another line here. If I undo back to the erase, I lost my line work. Okay, but if I do that again, I say erase, and I just say erase these here, and I do a line, and I go from here to here to here to here to here to here to here, and I realize that I erased those, I didn't want to erase them. I can type in oops, and it will just bring those back without doing undo. So those entities come back, and the line that work that I did does not disappear. The other option is type in U, hit undo, 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 and then you lose your work. So it also comes in handy when you're trying to select things, and you might want to erase some things to get them out of the way and do some work in that area, and then you can oops them back. So sometimes that makes life a little easier. That's a little trick to do there. Okay. Let's talk about, we talked about the erase command and selections. Okay. You have just picking. Okay. When you're asked to select something, it means either pick it with using the little pick box or using crossings or anything like that. Not sure what that was. Okay. So now we're going to talk about another command called offset. All right, offset is kind of a cool command because it takes an object and it offsets it in a particular direction. And however, if it has to make it bigger or smaller to do that offset, it will do so. Okay, so let's take this line here. Say I want to offset that 0.25. So it's going to do a parallel offset. If I pick this direction here, boom, and I can do it again, boom, and I can sit here and just draw the same exact line, just 0.25 at a parallel point away from it. I can come back down here and do the same thing. I am doing a 1/4 inch. And since I've already typed in the distance, I can offset other objects as well. So I can come over here and do these. It's still going to be 0.25. All right, there's different options for it, but I can also do that with a circle. Now you notice I can go in here, but eventually I'm going to run out of room to be able to do a circle. So I can no longer do inside here. Okay, because I can't do it. So what I can do here is I can keep going out, but I can't go in anymore. All right. So the offset command will make those adjustments for you. Right. So if you have multiple entities here that are kind of attached together, but they're not, they're still separate entities, and I come in here and do offsets here, I get all this extra line work here. So there's definitely a way to clean some things up like this. Okay. So if you're just trying to get some line work in there that kind of worked, you could make it work. This one actually kind of gets all down here in this little bitty spot here, and that's not what we wanted. All right, but we'll get into another command here that we can kind of have fun with on that. All right, and let's see. Excellent. All right, I'm going to do an erase. There's another feature you can take. You type in ALL to select everything. So if I want to delete everything, I just hit erase all and be done. All right. That's not typically something you'd use very much, but if you're trying to clean up a drawing and you've gotten rid of everything, you want to get it gone, you can do that and then start nice and fresh from that particular aspect of it. Keep in mind that there is a lot of data that goes along with those things, such as layers, styles, and other information that's still stored in the drawing. But there's a command called purge. You can type in purge. Okay, and this kind of helps you clean out your drawing. Okay, so if you have trash in there or anything like that, I don't have much trash in this particular drawing because I haven't done much in it. You can actually purge out things like that. Okay, but we'll get into that later. That's called drawing maintenance area, and we'll get into that after a while. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you guys an assignment, and this is what I want you guys to understand. There are industry standards for when you're working in drafting, okay? And a lot of that has to do with your sheet size, okay? Because your goal is to get something in CAD and then get it to a print. Most interesting things, these were called blueprints for many, many years, and that was the reason they were called blueprints is because they had a blue line machine. And the blue line machine was actually had special paper that was actually yellow paper. And then what you do is you put your print on top of it, and then you run it through this machine. It would expose it to an ammonia, and that ammonia vapor would actually take the yellow stuff and make everything that wasn't that had ink over it would become blue because it was not exposed the same way. And so it would actually kind of clear everything else out. The yellow would go away and everything that had ink on above it would become blue. And that's why they were called blue lines. They don't use blue lines anymore. Everybody uses pretty much an 8.5 or 11 by 17 print, and sometimes they will print a full size set. Now, a full size set is typically a D size. Okay, a D size is a 24-inch by 36-inch piece of paper. And when we talk about that, we're talking about in portrait mode. So it'd be 24 inches this way and 36 inches this way. But we rotate ours onto a landscape mode. So I'm going to draw one real quick. I'm going to use what's called a P-line command. Okay, I'm going to start from 0, 0, and I'm going to draw over this way 24 inches, and I'm going to draw up 36 inches. Then I'm going to come back over this way 24 inches. Oops, undo. Then I'm going to come back to the 24 inches, and then I'm going to see for close. Now this is what a 24, because it comes across this way, by 36-inch piece of paper looks like. But when we're doing drawings, we use those in a portrait mode, or I'm sorry, a landscape mode. Portrait is the vertical is the taller part. Landscape is when you rotate it to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this using the rotate command. And I'm going to rotate. I'm going to rotate this from 0, 0, and I'm going to rotate it minus 90 degrees. Okay, then I'm going to move it using the move command. I'm going to pick it with the pick box. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to type in E and D point because I want this endpoint to go to 0, 0. Boom. Now that's what my drawing area would typically look like. Okay. Now this is a 24-inch by 36-inch piece of paper. That means that I can put inside this parts that are, up to like 34.5 or 35 inches, in size, or I can apply something that's kind of what's called a scale. Now, I know you guys have probably heard of scales, and some of you may have not. Liam may or may not have. What a scale is when you apply something to equal something else. So if I say 1 inch equals 10 feet, that means if I draw an inch on here and I come across here 1 inch, boom, that means that is 10 feet. It's not 1 inch. But since I'm in CAD, I can actually draw that to be 10 feet, and then I can print it to be 1 inch. This gives me a where I can apply what's called a scale factor. When you were drawing on the board, you didn't have that option. If you wanted to draw something that was 10 feet, you actually drew it 1 inch because your scale that you were working with was 1 inch equals 10 feet. So if it's going to be 10 feet, it would be 1 inch long on your drawing. And that was all there was to it. And you draw these things at that scale level. In CAD, we like to draw things at full size and then scale them to print on a piece of paper. It gives us the ability to draw in real size and not worry about the discrepancies and things like that if you mess up on your calculation for your scale. All right, so this is a 24 by 36-inch border. Okay, that's your sheet size. Now, if you draw on the edge of the sheet, what happens when you run that through a copier? You start losing stuff. So you end up having what things called a margin. Okay, I'm going to use the offset command, and I'm going to set it to 1 inch because I want to have a 1 inch margin all the way around my drawing. Okay, so now I want to stay inside this area here. But again, I want to be able to fit 10 feet in here. So what do I need to do? I need to type in what's called the scale command. Okay, I type in scale. I select my object. I scale it from 0, 0 because I want that point to maintain. And what is my scale factor that I need to scale it up to so that I can get that 1 inch equals 10 feet? Now, 1 inch equals 10 feet. So that means there's got to be something in there that says 1 times something equals 10 feet, right? 10 feet is what? That's feet. So how many inches are in a foot? 12. And we have 12 times 10, that's going to be 120. So that means 1 times 120 equals 120. That's our scale factor, is 120. So I'm going to type in 120. And then I'm going to zoom extents. Right, here's my area. So now if I draw a line, and I pick this line, and I draw this to be 10 feet, I'm going to say 120. That fits in there just fine. See that line? That fits in there just wonderfully. Okay, if I want to draw a 60-foot by 60-foot building, that will fit inside this scale factor. Okay, so if I draw a 60-foot building, let's do that. I'm going to do a line from here, and I'm going to go 60 feet, which is what's 6 times 12? Nobody? 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 720. And say I want to go 50 feet this way. Okay, and then 720 and
Hello?
close.
Is my mic working? Oh, sorry. My mic
Yeah.
wasn't. It was not working for me. It was.
Oh, no worries. All right, erase. All right, so there's my building. That would be 60 by 50 feet. Now that fits on here just fine. So if I wanted to actually show these things and everything else. Now, scale factors apply to many elements inside your drawing. Okay, if I want to put a piece of text on here, that should be like maybe 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch on my drawing. Okay, so I just type in text. And I pick right here, and it asks me for height. I want it to be 1/4 inch, right? So I'm gonna say 0.25, and my angle is 0. I want it to go this way, so I'm dragging for 0 or hit enter. Okay, and I start typing. This is my text. Now you're like, it doesn't show up anywhere. Is that gonna look good on your drawing? If you zoom in, zoom way in, you can see this is my text, and I still can't type. Okay, let me fix that. All right, good. All right, so I want a 1/4 inch text. And the scale of this drawing is 120. That means I need to scale that text up 120 times. So I pick it, and I'm going to pick a point. Now I'm going to use a different O snap you guys have not seen. It's called insert, INS. It's the insertion point of that text. Okay, it's going to be usually the lower left hand unless it's justified in a different way. And I'm going to type in 120. And now you can see that that is a little bit more proportional. Okay, this is going to be 1/4 inch high. This text is going to be 1/4 inch high. All right. So if you did that, 1 inch equals a foot, or 1 inch equals 10 feet. How many feet is this? How tall is that text? Anybody?
My mic wasn't unmuted. Sorry. You said so 1 inch equals 10 feet, right?
Correct.
And this was scaled to. Did you say 120?
120.
120. 12. 12. Wait.
1 inch equals 10 feet. This is a 1/4 of an inch. So that means it's a 1/4 of 10. So you divide 10 feet by 4, and you get what?
10 divided by 4 would be 2.5, right?
2.5 feet, which is 30 inches right here. So your text height is actually 30 inches. Okay. All right.
Oh.
This is an introduction to scale factors, guys. All right. So scale factors are something that tend to mess a lot of people up. All right. And I've written a lot of things on this, a lot of items on this. I'm going to post my a blog that I'd like you guys to go read. It's one I wrote about scale factors specifically. It's actually 4 parts. It's not terribly long or anything like that, but you can go through it, read it, understand it, and it's going to help you with this material quite a bit more than me just showing you on here, because you can actually play with it and think about it and kind of grasp the concept. All right, our exercise that we're going to kind of work on, I want you guys to work on this week until, we'll look at it and we'll review the exercise, the process next week, is I want you guys to do something similar to what we did right here. Okay, I want you to draw me a building. Okay, and I want that building to be 100 by 60. Okay, And let's see, I want to start writing these down over here so we know what we're doing. 100 feet by 60 feet. Okay. And I want you to also draw a circle. Okay. I'm going to type in, oops, I'm going to put a circle over here, and this circle should represent a well. Okay. So that well is only 6 feet in diameter. So that's going to give me a 3-foot diameter. So I'm going to say 36 for my radius. Okay. That well is right there. But I want this well to be 20 feet away from the building, but the center should be in line with the west edge of the building. Okay. Remember, over here is east, over here is west. This is north, this is south. Okay, if I turn the UCS icon, UCS icon back on. Okay, X this way is east and west. Okay, Y is north and south. Up is north, down is south, east is right, west is left. Okay, so I want you to line this circle up with the west side of your building. And your building is going to be 100 by 60. Now, which way you orient the building, I don't care. All right. But I want this well to be 20 feet away from your north side of the building. All right. Everybody understand what I'm saying there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
All right.
So it's in the middle of the west wall, but 20 feet away from the north wall.
Correct. Diameter. Okay. Located. Yes, long. 20 foot. North wall. Okay, and that's your job. I also want you to have a D size border around it. Remember, a D size is 24 by 36. Now, if you think you can fit that on a different scale, a standard scale, you're welcome to do that. But make sure it's a standard scale that you're going to actually read from my blog. Okay. Now, standard scales, there's engineering and there's architectural. Okay. An architectural scale is something like a fraction of an inch equals an inch, like a quarter of an inch equals an inch, 3/8 of an inch equals an inch, 3/16 equals an inch, 1/8 equals an inch. Those are fractions equal an inch. Those are architectural scales. Engineering scales are typically 1 inch equals a multiple of feet, like 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, 60, 100, and things like that. So you can get kind of up there quite a bit. We won't get into metric right now, but there is a lot of metric scales out there as well. Okay, metric scale a lot easier because it's multiples of 10. And so we won't get into those right now, but we will cover all that. Okay, so you'll have your assignment. And let me see, let me put the, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop the recording. All right, guys, we're done for that. Just stay here though, and don't go anywhere. All right, and stop.